Welcome back to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. My name is Jake Ray, and I'm the Youth and Education Manager here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, the most inspiring place on earth. If you just got done watching our live video of the Centene Strong Youth, Strong Community, thank you so much for tuning into that powerful discussion. A lot of great words of encouragement as part of that program. So thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for tuning into our next edition of the Before the Snap series, today featuring Miss Jen McCollum. Jen is the Senior Director of Community Relations and Detroit Lions Charities, which means she oversees all revenue generating and grant-making activities for the team's charitable foundation, along with the team, player, and former players' community engagement efforts. Prior to joining the Lions in 2018, she served as the Executive Vice President of Development and Communications for Northern Virginia Family Services, a human service organization annually serving more than 40,000 individuals in the metropolitan D.C. area. With more than 15 years of fundraising and grant-making experience, she has also held positions with organizations like the American Cancer Society, the JFK Center for Performing Arts, Big Brothers Big Sisters, and the Community Foundation for Northern Virginia. She's a graduate of Michigan State and Indiana University with a bachelor's degree in communications and master's degree in philanthropic studies, respectively. So I can tell you, we got a real good one for our program today. Before we get started, a little bit about the Pro Football Hall of Fame, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know already. The mission here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame is to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence everywhere. And those values we promote are those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence, all of which play a huge role not only in the game of football on the field, but life off the field, especially when you work for an NFL organization, even more when you work in a department like community relations, seeing how those values transpire into life for all of those great NFL athletes off the field. I cannot wait to see some of the questions we have today from all those people tuning in. I know I got some questions ready to go. I hope you guys tuning in have those questions prepared as well. Before we get started and we turn things over to our special guest today, just a few thank yous I want to send out. First of all, Jen, thank you so much for all you do for the game of football and for us here at the Hall of Fame. I know you've probably been told a million times, but the game of football, the NFL landscape as we know it today, would not look the same without people like you working hard 365 days a year, to put that final product on the field on Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays, whenever those game days might be. Secondly, I'd like to thank our teachers and administrators today for allowing us to come into your classroom to teach you, your students a little bit about all the different careers out there in and around the NFL, careers that you might not even know of. So we want to kind of show all the great opportunities there are for students and current professionals in and around the National Football League. Lastly, I'd like to thank all of our students who are tuning in. Without you guys today, this program doesn't take place. So like I said, I'm excited to see the questions you have prepared today, excited to see some of the engagement we get. And leading into my last point here, lastly, if you are tuning in on Facebook Live today and you're viewing this program right now, or you're tuning in a minute, make sure you ask a question. We're going to try our best to get those questions in as part of the program. And we want to make sure that your question is included. So if you are watching, leave your name. If you go to a high school or college, leave that school. Put that school down in the comment section that you go to, and then your question, and we'll see if we can make that in as part of the program. So that's enough for me. So without further ado, let's turn things over to our special guest today, Ms. Jen McCollum. Jen, thank you so much for being a part of our program today.
Hey, Jake, thanks so much for having me. Really happy to be here.
Well, we have first off, and just like we started everything else, the title you have, Senior Director of Community Relations and Detroit Lions Charities. Probably hard to fit on the business card.
It's a mouthful, yeah.
But can you give us just a 10,000-foot view, and everybody watching today, what you do kind of on a day-to-day basis?
Yep. So our team, Community Relations and Detroit Lions Charities, we oversee kind of anything the team is doing out in the community, and that includes current players, wives of players and coaching staff, legends, our former players. So community relations is more of league initiatives. So Crucial Catch, anything we're doing around cancer awareness in October, or Salute to Service in November, anytime we're in schools, and just really engaging in the community. And then Detroit Lions Charities is actually the team's foundation. So many teams have their own charitable foundation. It is a 501c3. nonprofit. And so we fundraise and make grants. And so every day is a little bit different, but ultimately every day is focused on engaging in the community.
I think that's such an important role. You know, we see the players on the field, and a lot of them know the player behind the face mask or the player in the helmet. But it's so cool to see those players out in the community and doing so much, giving back to those fans who really drive, you know, what the team is and what that team really does. So, you know, that's kind of, you know, what you do today. But we talk a little bit about, you know, leading up to your career. So, before you know got into this position with the Lions, you had some other careers, you know, really throughout the country. So growing up, what was this kind of the dream job for you, or did you have a dream job that you wanted, you know, when you were in high school or college?
Yeah, so growing up, journalism was always my goal. So specifically writing, I actually wanted to write for the Washington Post. That was what I was going to do, and then got into college and kind of shifted a bit to go a little bit more broad, focusing in on communications and public relations. I actually interned in the NBA, and so in college, I kind of decided I wanted to go the sports route, and then an internship in the nonprofit world kind of redirected my path. And so kind of coming full circle now to marrying my love of community and nonprofit work with the professional sports industry.
We mentioned you went to Michigan State and Indiana, so we represent the Big Ten pretty well.
Yep.
Yeah, and you had a bunch of you had 2 different degrees, but you also, you know, reading some stuff about you, you had some specific certificates that you got from other colleges and institutions. So can you talk a little bit about, you know, your college career and path and, you know, all those degrees and certificates that you got and how they've helped you with your job today?
Yeah. So undergrad at Michigan State, communications with a specialization in public relations. Then went to George Washington University a few years in my career. I was working in the nonprofit sector and got my certificate in event management. Then a few years later, pursued my master's degree in philanthropic studies from Indiana and a couple of nonprofit certificates there as well. And I would say, you know, the communications and the PR and event management really apply to a lot of different roles, but definitely very helpful now. And then the specific education and training that I had in the nonprofit field absolutely helps what I'm doing now, but really got me to where I am in my career, given my background and experience in the nonprofit sector.
So we got questions coming in on Facebook already, which is great. And this first one's from Heather. She is a sport management teacher professor at Bowling Green University, right here in Ohio. She has her question is, what does the future look like for college grads who want to work in sports? You know, with everything going on right now, you know, regarding the pandemic and how things are changing and, you know, kind of there's a lot of hiring freezes, you know, throughout the country. So for a current college student going to graduate this coming May, or maybe they've already graduated, what does that outline look for somebody like them? And do you have any advice for somebody who might be in that situation?
Yeah, I think definitely times are different right now. But I would say my advice is kind of the same, whether we're in the pandemic or, you know, in a non-COVID year is really, it's about building relationships and really honing your craft. So I believe that I was brought on into my role because of my background in nonprofit and fundraising and philanthropy, not in particular for sports, because, you know, my internship in college obviously helped, but I've had 15 years in the nonprofit sector. So I think it's really finding that path of what kind of role you want to be in, whether it's sales or the community side or marketing, and really honing that your craft. And so right now for college graduates, it's getting any sort of internship experience, any sort of just building network, reaching out to individuals in the field within sports and without, you know, outside of sports in those specific fields. So, you know, we're on a little bit of a pause right now. Many organizations are hiring wise, but that doesn't mean that you can't still get some experience. It might be some unpaid experience. It might be networking. But I think it's going to turn around. I mean, we're seeing sports coming back. And I think, soon we'll see more opportunities coming.
And we'll get back into that networking, that college side of things in a minute. But one last question I have, kind of reflecting on what you do currently. Have you had a memory from your current role that stands out as more special than the others, whether it's, a specific game you were at or a specific on-field moment, or, on the community side, is there a specific off-the-field moment that you kind of consider one that reigns special to you?
Yeah, I'll share two briefly. So one is a program that we launched, and I'm incredibly proud of it. That our team has pulled together over the last year and a half. It's called Touchdown in Your Town, and we launched it last year to really grow love of the game and safe play across the state of Michigan. And so over the last 2 summers, we've popped up at local high schools across the state of Michigan and surprised them with brand new Riddell helmets and new equipment and funding. This year we partnered with Kroger as a presenting partner on it, and we were able to do a little bit more. And so it was really cool to put that plan together and build it and see it come to fruition and see the impact. I was just at a high school yesterday and they were surprising the kids with the helmet. So it was pretty cool. And then another one is we did an honor flight last November, almost a year ago, with our legends, and took 100 veterans to Washington, D.C. for the day. And 10 of our legends went and supported the veterans along that process of flying to DC and seeing the memorials that were built in their honor. So that was a really, really cool experience. So I would say that those are two of the most the standout moments for me since I started.
I think those are two obvious ones. Obviously, when you think of, sports, the memories that come up are those on the field. But for somebody, in our department here at the Hall of Fame, in youth and education, we kind of have that community relations tie-in, and it's cool to see when you have that impact in the community, because it is more than just, the X's and O's. It's more than just what you're doing on the field. It is a huge impact, and it spans, nationwide. So that is very cool. Two very awesome programs, it sounds like. For sure. Part of the great part of this program is we're trying to teach not only those students in college, but students in high school, college, and beyond, about all the different careers, in and around the NFL. So for a student who might be in high school or about to enter college that might not have a good idea on what they want to do or what career they want to pursue, what would a piece of advice you would give them to find a career that best suits, some of their interests and things they like to do?
Yeah, I think, what worked for me was I had 5 internships in college, and they were completely ran the gamut. They were all over the place. I had no idea exactly what I wanted to do or where I was going to land, but I would say, finding job opportunities, volunteer opportunities, internships, and just kind of test things out and see where you gravitate towards the type of opportunities where you really thrive and get excited. So definitely just kind of sampling a lot of different things, reaching out and connecting with professionals in the space. I have, quite a few people who reach out and want to talk about community. They're interested in it, and we sit down and talk. And I think that's a great way, is to find somebody in the field that you're looking at to get an idea. So yeah, that's what I would say, is just kind of testing a lot of different directions, and also trust the process, as cheesy as that sounds. But so many kids, I think, coming up through high school and college are laser focused on one end goal. But understand that the direction is going to change. You are not going to land where you thought you were going to land, and that's okay. And so be patient with it as well.
Now we move up to those students at college, and we mentioned this a little bit before, but you mentioned networking. And, when I was in school, that was stressed a lot to me about how important networking is, not only for college students, but specifically somebody looking to get into sports. So what would be some of the advice you would echo on that side of things, on how important it is to network, and advice you would give the students who are trying to look to network with professionals in that industry that they're looking to get into?
Yeah, networking is so key. I think sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to realize that and appreciate that. I wish I would have taken advantage of some of the instructors that I had, my professors who were very connected in the space, or the space I wanted to go into. And so, especially Michigan State, it's such a big school, and so you don't necessarily have those personal relationships, but a lot of people go out of the way to build those, are setting themselves up for success. So I would say networking in the industry, but also networking in your classroom as well.
And then we get to, you get out of college, you get that career in that field that you want. And, you're not going to enter at the senior director level. You're going to come in at that entry level position. So, and thanks to technology, thanks to things like Zoom today and things that we're doing, it allows people to continue their craft and better themselves in their field. So what would another piece of advice you would give to somebody who might be a young professional or, have been in a career field 15, 20 years about what are some ways that they can better themselves so when they show up to work every day, they are the best version they can be and are going to perform at that top level?
Yeah, I would say, especially in the sports industry, which is evolving every day, and also the same on the nonprofit side. So, very relevant for someone in my role is that it's important to stay on top of things. So, every day I'm looking at what other NFL teams are doing, what other sports leagues are doing on the community side, what is going on in the nonprofit world. So, really figuring out all aspects of your field and just staying on top of it, and again, networking, not to beat a dead horse here, but connecting with people in the field and staying on top of what they're doing as well.
I got another question coming in here from Facebook, and it was one we were going to get to, but we'll jump into it now. It says, this is from Joey. It says, what roles within NFL franchises would you say have been the most important during this pandemic and the return to play? And what have you learned, from being in that sort of experience?
Yeah, I think, well, first, hats off to everybody on the football side and our medical team and trainers. They have really been, working incredibly hard through the off season to get everybody to where they are now on the field. So they've just done an incredible job. We've been on the community side really working hard since the pandemic hit, responding to the needs of community and working with players on helping to engage and fulfill their philanthropic priorities. Really everybody across the organization. I mean, anybody who's responsible for game day, our operations team at the stadium, our marketing team to help get the stadium ready. And we've had to pivot so many times and have so many different scenarios ready. So it's really been an all hands on deck, I guess, off season and now season.
Part of our job here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame is to not only honor all those heroes, but we also preserve the history of the game. And that's where our museum side comes into play. And we got so many different artifacts on display, from those great bronze busts that are going to last 40,000 years here in Canton, Ohio. Lions player, wide receiver, Megatron Calvin Johnson just was announced last week as a finalist to hopefully might be inducted on he's a first ballot guy, might be inducted to the Hall of Fame this year. So we might be seeing you in Canton here in August. So you guys cross your fingers that I don't have a vote, so I got no pool in that, but Calvin Johnson, does have a chance to get here. But we also have a lot of other really cool things on display. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to send it out to our museum. I've got Jim McCriss, who's the voice of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Lucky to have him here today in front of some of those artifacts, those cool artifacts we have on display pertaining to the Detroit Lions. So Jim, are you there?
I am. Hey, thank you. I am Jim McCriss, and I'm here in the Pro Football Today gallery, and I'm standing next to an artifact that's very memorable to telling the history of the Detroit Lions franchise. And it's not this Tom Brady draft card, but if you look right next to it, we have a draft card from 2009 when the Detroit Lions selected Matthew Stafford with the first overall pick out of the University of Georgia. Now, as a lot of you know, Stafford has gone on to quarterback the team for well over a decade. But this isn't the only Lions card that we have on display. See, the Hall of Fame gets the draft cards from the NFL every year for the most recent draft, which means in this case over here, we've got the card from when the Detroit Lions selected Jeff Okudah with the third pick out of the Ohio State University. And I was thinking, as we're looking at these draft cards and talking about the days when the Lions select these guys to join their team, how do you then take these players and connect them with the Detroit community once they've joined the team?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it really depends on where they are in their career and where they call home and how deeply entrenched they are there in their community where they grew up or at their college. But let's use Jeff as an example. When, he came to the Lions in this off season, one of the things that we do for our rookies is we host a rookie event, community event. And so what we did was we had all of the rookies on Zoom this year virtually, and we connected them to our Detroit Lions Charities partners. So we have 5 nonprofit partners that we work very closely with in the community that our players engage with all year round. So we had all of our rookies on with the nonprofits that we partner with, and they got to learn about them and engage with them. And so that's kind of their first exposure to our partners. We do a lot right out the gate when they get here in the off season, whether rookies or veterans that have come from other teams, to connect them with our nonprofit partners. So we facilitate events either at the training facility and bring our partners in, or we take them out in the community for hands-on work. So we try and get them really entrenched right out the gate. And I think it's important to note that, that on the football side, community is very important to them. So that is something that coach and all of the coaches and staff over there really believe strongly in. So we are fortunate that in the off season, before they're hitting the field, we have that opportunity to connect them there.
Another player-led, platform that you have there with the Lions is called Detroit Lions Inspire Change.
Mm-hmm.
With all the social justice initiatives going on throughout the country in so many different organizations, Detroit Lions Inspire Change is one of those. So can you tell us about that program, that platform, how it's player-led, and the impact it's having in your local community?
Yeah. So Inspire Change is an NFL initiative that launched we're going into year 3 of it. So each team activates locally in their communities. So again, we're heading into year 3. And so the players put in their own funding, and then the team matches, the club matches. So each year we have around $500,000, $600,000 that we're able to grant back into the community, into initiatives working in the social justice realm. The players, along with putting their own funds into it, actually sit down and vet out the organizations that they select. So they want to know that their money and their time and their efforts are really kind of moving the needle. And so we sit down in the fall with the players and talk through, okay, what kind of causes and organizations do you want to support in the social justice realm? They select them, we make the grants, and then throughout the year they engage with them. So, this year more than ever, they're engaged and want to do more. And so we haven't had the conversations yet about the next round of funding, but they are definitely engaging every day in that space. And I think our work in the year ahead will be even more intentional and hands-on.
So along those same lines, what goes into getting a player to make an appearance or be at a community event? Is it as simple as calling them and say, hey, I need you here at this time, at this place, wearing this? Or is it, hey, I'm going to come pick you up. We're going to get to this organization. We're going to get to this YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
What goes into working with those players and getting them out into a community?
Yeah. So we have on our team, we're fortunate, we have one of our team members who is at the training facility and working with the guys day in and day out. And so if we have an event coming up that we're responsible for and coordinating on behalf of the Lions, he's in the locker room saying like, hey, we have this, event coming up. Can you be there? Can you be there? Like lining the guys up. If it's something, a specific ask from an organization, they reach out and say, hey, we need a player. We're working through which player's the best one, the best fit given their interest and their availability. And then he again is in the locker room or texting and calling them. So it's great that we have that access. And again, that comes from coach and really the organizational priorities. It's really important to the organization that our players engage, and the players feel that way too. I've never really ever received much pushback from players about like, no, I can, or I have something else going on. I mean, they truly, genuinely want to be involved.
I think when you get those guys who do want to be involved, the message that they can bring to whatever community event is huge. Here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, we like to say we're unapologetically football. But we know that the values that the game of football teaches can be used in anything, any sport, any life event, whatever it might be. So, being involved with the game of football here for the last couple of years now, what do you think, or what are some things that come to mind that you believe the game of football teaches that can be applied to, everyday life off the field?
Yeah, I think really teamwork, obviously the obvious one, and flexibility. We, especially in our industry, have to be able to pivot and kind of go with the flow, but still stay laser focused on that end goal. And so we always go back to that on our team of like, what are we trying to accomplish? What, are we trying to achieve here? And I think that that's very applicable to the game on the field.
So we get to the game on the field, and game day for everybody is different. There's guys who are there at 3 a.m. in the morning and don't leave till midnight. There are people who are just game day employees, taking tickets, selling 50-50. For you, now a typical game day in 2020 is different than any game day any other year. But if this was a typical NFL season, what would a typical Detroit Lions home game day be for you?
So my team gets there several hours in advance of the game. We usually have several things going on. So Legends movement. So if we have Legends signing autographs, taking photos, doing media, we're lining them up, meeting them, escorting them, getting them to where they need to be. We may have a special community guest, a Make-A-Wish child and their family that we're hosting and taking down to the sidelines and pulling guys over to meet with them and take photos. We may have 50-50 raffle. So game day 50-50 raffle, not a lot of people realize this, but many NFL teams have game day 50-50 raffle that benefits their team foundation. And so we have that as well. So we're helping to coordinate that. We host our former players in a suite. And so we're making sure that, it's a little bit of hospitality as well. So it's a lot of moving parts, mainly focused on former players and community engagement there in the stadium.
We talk about the community engagement, and it obviously is a huge piece to what you do. But on the flip side of that, you have the foundation side, the Detroit Lions Charities. What is a 10,000-foot view of the foundation side of your job and what the charity does? And if you're interested, if there's Lions fans watching or people in the Detroit community watching, how do they get involved to help out with the foundation?
Yep. So again, the Detroit Lions Charities 501c3 nonprofit. So we fundraise. So that's one side of it. So our game day 50-50 raffle, we have right now game day auctions. So you'll see the week leading up to home games, we have auctions online with unique items and experiences that people can bid on. We have our locker room sale once a year where you can purchase items from Ford Field. So fundraising, generating revenue. And so that's the easiest way for people to get involved is to support by making donations. Right now we have the fan cutouts. A lot of teams have those. So you can purchase your cutout to have in the stands and the proceeds benefit the foundation. So that's the fundraising side. And then the grant making side, we're really laser focused on supporting youth, access and opportunity and social justice initiatives in Detroit and beyond. And so we partner with organizations to make grants and support their transformational efforts in the community.
Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely any type of foundation is great, but it's cool to see that it's not just, hey, give us a check. There's so much more that goes into, there's actually ways for people to get involved to where they're making a difference other than just, writing checks. So that is great to hear. I like this next question. It can be the easiest question you might answer, or it could be the hardest question that you have. What do you love most about your job?
Actually, it's the easiest, as I can say, my team that I get to work with. I have the most incredible, dedicated team. So that's easy. And then also really just anytime we're in the community and see, a kid's face light up and the players too. So, so often we're used to seeing the players, focused on the game and very intense, and then seeing them off the field and engaging with, an elementary school student and seeing the mutual joy in that engagement is just, it really makes it all worth it.
I think that's cool. We do some programs here, at the Hall of Fame where you do kind of get that same relationship where, the person you have there as a special guest is getting just as much, if not more, out of the program being there. So it is definitely, really cool to see that relationship between, that special guest, or that for us, it would be a Hall of Famer or a local high school player. For you guys, Lions legends, current players, coaches. Yes. So I think that's a really cool relationship and really shows, what the game of football can do, bringing everybody together and, making everybody forget about what's going on for that specific time. Looking at, your career today, a lot of people that want to work in sports, obviously they have a major in sport management, sport business, sport marketing, something along those lines. But that's not where your degree is. So for somebody that says, well, I need to have a degree in sport management or something along the lines of sport, how do you think educational experiences that you had helped you prepare for life, now working in the NFL?
Yeah, I think, again, to go back to kind of what I was saying earlier is, just getting any sort of internship experience, volunteer experience, that networking is really, really critical. As far as the degree goes, it's interesting because I, again, have mentioned that I wanted to write. I was going to write for the Washington Post. So I was a journalism major when I first started out. And then I had this idea in my head that I would only be able to get a job as a journalism. So was I pigeonholing myself into that? So then I switched to communications with public relations to go a little bit more broad. And ultimately, at the end of the day, so many degrees are so transferable to different fields. And so it's really about what you do with it and the experience out of the classroom that sets you up for a role in sports or anything, really. I think, my experience with communications and events and fundraising that I got in and out of schools really gotten me to where I am. And I didn't need the sports degree for that.
Got another question here on Facebook. This is from Nicole, and we talked about the goods part of your job. What do you love about your job? So this question, kind of flip side of that, is there anything that you don't like about your job, or struggles or weaknesses in your job that you think you could change? And if they are, how do you turn those downsides, those weaknesses into strengths, one day down the road?
Yeah, good question, Nicole. So I'm a planner. And as soon as you get into this industry, you realize that goes out the window. You can only plan so much. And it's been great. It's been a great personal and professional growth opportunity for me. Our business is football. And so football dictates, so much of what we do. As it should. And so I think just embracing it and rolling with it has been really, really helpful for me. So I would say that was the most challenging right out the gate, but it's good now.
I would agree 100%. I'm a planner too, so I definitely agree and see where you're coming from there. Got time here for a couple more questions before we wrap up. I know you got a meeting you got to get to, which is part of the job. Sometimes you got to be on Zoom, sometimes you got a meeting you got to be at. So that is a cool little addition to the program today. What do you think within your career working in the NFL, working in sports? What are some of the quote unquote secrets, to success, in working in sports or any career field for that matter?
Yeah, I go back to being flexible. Really in this field is just being able to embrace the unknown and know that change is constant. And so if you can embrace that and learn to kind of roll with punches, then you're going to be pretty successful. Set yourself up for success.
Got another question, a follow-up question from the Heather who asked from Bowling Green, and I think this is a great question. She has a bunch of female college students, in her class, and her question is, how difficult do you think it is for women to get into the front office of an NFL organization, and is there any intimidation factor in that?
Yeah, that's a great question and one that I get a lot. And I would say, I can only speak really specifically to the Lions organization, and it's kind of a non-factor. I think that tone is set from Mrs. Ford and now Sheila Hamp, our ownership. We have our team president, Rod Wood, has placed several female VPs in leadership roles. And so it's really, it's incredibly inspiring to see that. It's just really, we have a good mix of females and males in the office, and it works out really well. And then I'll also say, when we're at league meetings within the NFL, from community relations staff to the staff that manage Legends, we go to these meetings or we're on virtual meetings, and there are a lot of women, a lot of strong, women in these high profile roles, and they're killing it. And so it's, I know that there's the perception there that it can be hard to get into and a hard profession to navigate, but that has not been my experience.
I think you mentioned Mrs. Ford, one of the matriarchs of the entire NFL has been in the game so long. So you do definitely have some great leadership, that like you said there, that kind of passes that down. And, it really all comes down to, who can do the job the best.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who they are, where they come from. If they're the person that's going to perform the best, we like to compare that to the huddle. In the football huddle, it doesn't matter what religion you are, where you grew up, what street you lived on. None of that, all that goes out the window. If you're one of the best 11 that can get the job done, you're going to be in that huddle. And I think that has so many relationships between not only the game itself, but then, life, and off the field, in your family life, in the office, wherever you work. So I think that's a great analogy there that you kind of made. So, like I said, with respect to you, want to give you time to prepare for your next meeting. So I'm going to wrap up here with my last question. And it kind of encompasses everything we talked about today. And I think it's a great way to wrap things up. Is there anybody watching, doesn't matter how old they are, where they are in their career, what is one piece of advice you would like everybody who tuned in today or everybody who's tuned in right now to leave the program with?
I would say find your why. So often we hear, I want to work in sports. I want to work in sports. Well, yeah, it's great. It's an exciting field. People love sports, but why? What is it about sports? What is it about that particular role? For me, when I'm hiring, it's great if you care about sports, but I want somebody who cares about the community and the impact that we can have as an organization on the community. So yes, great that you want to work in sports, but why? So figuring out, and I think that can be applicable for any interview, any opportunity, any field, is really find out what it is about that field and that profession and that role that excites you and why you are pursuing it.
That's going to wrap it up today. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Before we go, just a quick couple announcements. Before we leave everybody today, make sure you tune into the Pro Football Hall of Fame social media channels, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever it might be. Make sure you subscribe, follow, like, whatever it is, to stay up to date with all of this great content. Stuff like Before the Snap. We have our Heart of a Hall of Famer series powered by Extreme Networks, where we talk about gold jackets and character values. That's starting back up again. We got Anthony Munoz from the Cincinnati Bengals going to be with us next week on the 30th. So make sure you tune in for that. If you're a podcast listener, make sure you subscribe to the Pro Football Hall of Fame's podcast, The Mission, hosted by my great friend, coworker here, Mr. Jameer Howerton, where he interviews people all across the game of football. Doesn't have to, whether they're players, front office members, media members, to talk about the game and everything going on. We mentioned at the beginning, Strong Youth, Strong Community with Centene Corporation. That's all the great content that you can scoop up when you tune in and subscribe to all of our social media channels here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Jen, I want to thank you so much for being a part of the program. We mentioned at the beginning, the game of football isn't just 17 weeks out of the year, 17 games. It's a 365 day job. And we want to thank you for so much for what you do, not only within your organization, but for the game of football as a whole. So thank you so much for being a part of today's program and connecting in. Thank you so much for having me. It was great. With that, make sure you tune in us next here on Friday at noon. We're going to have Jason Romano, who's the host of the Sports Spectrum podcast. He's an author. He's a former producer at ESPN. Might have heard of that channel, that organization. So make sure you tune in to us here next Friday. Jason Romano is going to be our special guest. So for myself, all of our youth and education team, Jerry, Nathan, Jim, who we had as special guest, and our special guest, Ms. Jen McCollum, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will hopefully see you next week here as part of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series. Thank you, everybody.